What happens when a late-night host pushes the boundaries too far and a former president decides he's reached his breaking point? Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the most unforgettable and explosive moments in television history. Donald Trump storming off the set of Late Night with Seth Meyers right in the middle of a live interview. This wasn't some cleverly orchestrated comedy sketch or scripted reality TV drama designed to boost ratings. No, this was raw, unfiltered tension erupting on national television, capturing the nation's attention and sparking endless debates. Before we unpack the exact words and exchanges that led to Trump ripping off his microphone and marching out, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and drop a comment below sharing your take. Did the host cross an unforgivable line, or was Trump simply unable to handle the heat of genuine scrutiny? Your thoughts matter. Let's get a real discussion going. Now, buckle up as we break down how this chaotic spectacle unfolded step by step from the electric buildup to the fiery fallout. The scene was set in the iconic Studio 8G at Rockefeller Center in New York City, a place synonymous with late-night laughs and celebrity appearances. On that fateful evening in 2025, the air was thick with anticipation. Donald Trump, the ever-controversial former president, had agreed to appear on Late Night with Seth Meyers, and the buzz was palpable. Everyone in the industry, and likely across the country, knew this wasn't going to be your average chit-chat. The history between these two men stretched back over a decade, rooted in an infamous roast at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner. Back then, Meyers, as the head writer and anchor of Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, delivered a blistering takedown of Trump, mocking his birther conspiracy theories and his reality TV persona. Many political pundits and historians argue that this very roast played a pivotal role in fueling Trump's decision to enter politics, transforming personal humiliation into a drive for presidential power. So when news broke that Trump would sit down with Meyers again, the production team at NBC sensed they were handling dynamite. They prepared meticulously, scripting potential questions, anticipating deflections, and even rehearsing emergency protocols for if things went south. Little did they know, the explosion would be more spectacular and more real than anyone could have scripted. As the show kicked off, the energy in the studio was electric, a mix of excitement and unease. The live audience, a diverse crowd typical of New York City, filled the seats, their murmurs growing louder as the house band played Trump's entrance music, a bombastic tune that echoed his larger-than-life persona. Trump emerged from backstage to a polarized reception. Enthusiastic cheers from his supporters mingled with audible boos from detractors, creating a cacophony that set the tone for the night. He strode out in his trademark style, dark suit impeccably tailored, a long red tie swinging like a pendulum, and that signature confident smile plastered across his face. It was the kind of grin he wore when entering hostile territory, a mask of unflappable assurance. Meyers, positioned behind his sleek desk, adorned with quirky props and a mug of coffee, rose to greet him. The handshake that followed was telling. It lingered just a beat too long, each man squeezing a tad tighter, eyes locked in a silent challenge. The cameras captured it all, the forced cordiality, the underlying friction, as if to foreshadow the storm brewing. Both men were acutely aware of the millions watching at home, and neither wanted to be the first to blink. They settled into their seats, the studio lights casting dramatic shadows that amplified the drama. Meyers opened with what appeared to be a softball question, his voice steady and welcoming. "Welcome to the show, Mr. President. Thanks for coming. We have a lot to talk about tonight." Trump nodded, adjusting his jacket with a flourish, and responded smoothly, "I'm happy to be here, Seth. I always enjoy late-night TV because it lets the American people see the real me, not the distorted version the fake news media pushes." Right out of the gate, less than 30 seconds in, Trump was firing shots at the press, a classic move from his playbook. Meyers responded with a thin smile that barely concealed his skepticism, replying, "Well, I hope they do get to see the real you tonight because I have some real questions lined up." The audience chuckled nervously, sensing the undercurrent of sharpness. The initial exchanges were pointed but contained, like boxers circling each other in the ring, testing defenses without landing heavy blows. Meyers probed into Trump's political future, his plans for the Republican Party, whether he'd mount another presidential run in 2028, and how he viewed the current administration's policies. Trump, a master of evasion, danced around the queries with his characteristic verbosity. He'd launch into monologues about how everyday Americans approached him on the streets, pleading for his return to save the country. He'd rail against inflation, border security lapses, and what he called the disastrous state of the economy under President Harris. "People are suffering, Seth," he'd say, his voice rising with theatrical emphasis. "They can't afford groceries, gas. Everything I built is being torn down." Meyers would attempt to steer back to specifics, asking for concrete policy proposals or evidence to back his claims. But Trump, ever the showman, controlled the narrative, pivoting seamlessly to crowd-pleasing anecdotes that painted him as the ultimate victim-turned-hero. Then came the pivot that shifted the mood irrevocably. Meyers transitioned to Trump's ongoing legal battles, the multiple investigations, court cases, and indictments that had dogged him since leaving office. The former president's demeanor transformed in an instant. His smile tightened into a grimace, his responses grew curt and defensive. It's a witch hunt, current simple. Political persecution like no president has ever faced. They're coming after me because I'm a threat to the establishment. Meyers, armed with facts from recent headlines, pushed back gently at first, citing testimony from Trump's own former appointees and allies who had turned against him. But what about the evidence from people you appointed yourself? Meyers asked, his tone measured but insistent. Trump interrupted sharply. Those people? Liars, backstabbers. They're bitter because I fired them for incompetence. They're fabricating stories to sell books and stay relevant. I'm the real victim here, and deep down, you know it.
The atmosphere thickened. This was no longer lighthearted banter. The fun had evaporated, replaced by genuine animosity between two men who represented polar opposites in American culture, the sharp-witted comedian versus the bombastic tycoon-turned-politician. Meyers leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, and delivered a line that struck like a spark. With all due respect, calling yourself the victim when you're one of the most powerful men in the world, it's rich. The word rich hung in the air, laced with irony. Trump's face flushed crimson, his eyes narrowing. Rich? You want to talk about rich, Seth? What's rich is you sitting in this fancy studio raking in millions to read jokes someone else wrote for you, thinking that qualifies you to lecture me? I've built empires, created thousands of jobs, run a country. What have you done besides smug commentary from behind a desk? The audience gasped collectively, a wave of shock rippling through the studio. Applause erupted from some sections, while boos countered from others. Meyers raised his hands to quiet the crowd, his composure cracking slightly as he took a deep breath. "This is classic deflection," he retorted. "I ask about serious issues, and you attack me personally instead of answering." Trump fired back without hesitation. "You didn't ask a question. You made a snide statement. When the system's rigged against you, when the media lies daily, when they prosecute you for what others get away with, yes, you're a victim. That's not deflection, that's reality." Meyers refused to yield. "Okay, let's talk reality. Let's discuss the things you've said and done, the people hurt by your words and policies. Let's talk accountability instead of blame shifting." Trump half rose from his chair, his voice booming. "Hurting people? How about your side destroying cities with crime waves, inflation crippling families? Let's address real problems, not your manufactured outrage." The producers, visible in the shadows off stage, exchanged frantic glances. This was spiraling out of control. Meyers, injecting a hint of sarcasm, addressed him as Mr. President and added, "I invited you for a real conversation, not a rally. If you can't handle tough questions without melting down, maybe you're not as tough as you claim." That was the ignition point. Trump yanked off his lapel microphone, slamming it onto the desk with a thud that echoed through the microphones. "Melting down? I came here as a courtesy, thinking we could discuss things like adults, but you want a punching bag to score points with your liberal crowd by disrespecting a former president. I don't need this." Now both men were on their feet, facing off across the desk like gladiators. The audience was transfixed, a mix of awe and discomfort washing over them. This transcended television. It was a visceral clash unfolding in real time. Meyers held up his hands in a gesture blending appeasement and defiance. "Sit down. You knew this show's style. You agreed to real questions. If you can't handle it, leave. But don't pretend it's unfair. You're bolting because you can't defend your record." Trump barked a bitter laugh. "My record? Strongest economy ever before China's pandemic hit. 3 Supreme Court justices, rebuilt military, secure borders, energy independence. What has this administration done but undo it all and worsen lives? But you ignore that. It doesn't fit your narrative." Meyers stepped out from behind the desk, closing the distance, the cameras capturing every tense inch. The producers hesitated, cut to commercial or let it ride. They chose the latter, immortalizing this raw moment. Eye to eye, Meyers said, "Your problem is you can't accept legitimate disagreement. Critics are always fake news or conspirators. Maybe people have real concerns about your actions." Trump advanced, now mere feet apart, Secret Service agents edging closer from the wings. "My problem? People like you, who've never built, risked, or decided for millions, judging those who have. It's easy to criticize and joke, harder to achieve. You're obsessed with tearing me down because I accomplished more in 4 years than you will in a lifetime." The studio erupted, half the audience cheering Trump, the other half booing, the noise deafening. Meyers shouted over it, "That's your go-to. Attack accomplishments, make it personal. You can't discuss ideas without destruction." Trump countered, "You started this with loaded questions, interruptions, contempt. I faced world leaders, billion-dollar deals, unimaginable pressure. Your gotchas won't rattle me." Meyers shook his head in disbelief. "Incredible! You turn every interview into victimhood, everyone else the villain. Other guests handled tough questions with grace, but you fight because that's all you know." Trump gestured emphatically. "Grace? Laugh while insulted? That's weakness, and I'm not weak." Then Meyers delivered the fatal blow. "You're right. You rose by lying, bullying, appealing to worst instincts. Saddest part, you think you're the hero." The room fell silent, stunned by the directness. Trump paused, his expression a storm of anger and perhaps fleeting hurt. Then, quieter but intense, "I came to engage despite hostility. Disagree on policies? Fine. But attacking my character? Calling me a liar and bully? That's propaganda, not interviewing. I don't participate in that." Meyers tried to respond, but Trump cut him off. "I'm done. You slander for ratings. This is why trust in media is gone. Bias and hatred. Congrats on your moment. I'm leaving with dignity." As Trump turned to exit, Meyers called after, "Running proves you can't be challenged." Trump spun back. "I face dictators, titans. You're an annoyance. I don't waste time on annoyances." With that, he strode off, Secret Service in tow. Chaos ensued. Applause, boos, murmurs. Meyers, alone on stage, ran a hand through his hair, addressing the camera. "Well, that just happened." Nervous laughter broke the tension. For those tuning in, Donald Trump walked off after a heated exchange. But I don't regret pushing. That's accountability. If someone storms out claiming victimization, it reveals a lot. Backstage, producers scrambled. Planned segments crumbled. In the hallway, Trump, energized, told his team, "They know I was right. This shows consequences for disrespect. It makes me look strong." An advisor worried about optics, but Trump dismissed. People respect strength. The show limped on with the next guest, a comedian who quipped, "That was insane." Meyers, reflective, justified, "Some think I went too far, but holding power accountable isn't ambush, it's essential." Outside, Trump's team crafted statements. He phoned friendly networks framing Meyers as an ambusher. Clips viralized instantly, polarizing social media. Supporters hailed Trump's exit as dignified. Critics praised Meyers' tenacity. Debates raged, strength or evasion. Post-show, Meyers debriefed with producers, concluding the clash was inevitable. Maybe it's valuable, showing resistance to deflection over polite nothingness. The next morning, every outlet looped the footage. Analysts dissected, did it boost Trump's base or expose fragility? Media critics lauded Meyers' bravery. Memes flooded online, think pieces lamented fractured discourse. Trump tweeted relentlessly, calling Meyers a lightweight hack, reinforcing media bias narratives. His followers rallied, seeing vindication. On his next show, Meyers monologued unapologetically. "In a time of disputed facts and optional accountability, nodding along isn't my job. We need honesty over politeness." Applause followed, though divided. The nation mirrored. Ultimately, this wasn't just a walkout. It highlighted America's divide, where disagreement devolves into warfare. We've lost civil discourse, retreating to echo chambers. What do you think? Meyers cross the line or do his job? Trump strong or evasive? Subscribe, comment, let's discuss. See you next video, breaking more buzzworthy stories.